The first time I was engaged with this thing, I actually read a book and it was Michael Bloomberg and how he fixed the education system in New York. And really what he'd done is he had exactly the same concept that you can't have a decent institution if you don't have a good leader. So he'd set about harnessing the top business guys and putting together educational programs for principals effectively to become better leaders. And that included Jack Welch and using the GE training facilities and really just overhauling the leadership of the schools. So that had resonated with me. And then when I heard this, that Partners for Possibility was so far down this road, I mean, it was quite an easy step to take. So quickly, I mean, just from a business person's perspective, I specifically asked to be matched with a school in my area. So I said, kind of, listen, you can maybe take a 5K radius and match me here, because if I have to drive 30 kilometers every time I want to see the school, it's going to be a much weaker relationship. So I asked them to choose someone close by. So they went around literally cold calling, finding someone who was keen to have an intervention like this. And my first impression as I got there was, it's called St. Agnes Primary School. It's just down the road here in Woodstock, probably 1.5 kilometers from the office. And Alfonso Lowe, who's the principal, was just absolutely embracing all the kids. Literally, as I walked there were little kids running up to him and giving him a hug and giving them a love and that, and you could just see that there was a warmth and kindness radiating out of this person, and hence the school. And that was hugely exciting for me just to see that. I mean, you could see the obvious benefit that this guy was bringing to the school, right up front. I do think the actual journey of building the relationship with the principal is it's a complex thing. You're talking about often deep and sensitive matters, and you've got to have a structured approach to being a good listener first, to actually just understanding what this guy's going through and what the environment is. I mean, we live in a completely different environment, where there's plenty of resources to go around and you can choose what you want to do. Because really they are running these schools. In a school, it's a much softer kind of process about what is success and what is holistic success, and how you're developing children and how you're educating people. I mean, it's a softer subject than running business, largely. So that is it was a journey that I benefited from, just going through that with him. But it was about how we actually engage with the staff in order to get the staff to a better place. And it was engaging with him about his management style and leadership style with his own staff, because the only way for him to educate the kids better was to get the best out of his whole teaching force. And just to debate with him, what does he do? How does he do this thing? So I took him around to some of the other schools which you could call more privileged and engaged with some of the other headmasters and showed him some of the, let's call it Rolls-Royce activities going on at some of the other schools. He was very quick to embrace that. So a small thing, a small example, so if you're striving to improve academic excellence and outcomes, say, well, are you having a prize giving at the end of the year? And they just didn't have resources to put on a prize giving. So it was a very short journey for us. I said, don't worry, we'll sponsor, 3 trophies per grade, have first, second and third in each class. And it's really about recognition, and it's about creating the environment where there's going to be recognition and celebrating some success in the classroom. So those are kind of easy things for a business to do. It was really small money to buy a range of small little trophies, but then you could have a whole big prize giving. So the formal structure is obviously only a year with the Partners for Possibility, and I'm now into my 3rd year post the formal journey, and I've carried on with Alfonso. So we had an undertaking to meet once a week. We met 12 o'clock every Tuesday. If one of us couldn't make the meeting, we didn't try and reschedule it. So if you then, because it'll take you 3 weeks and you don't know whether your meeting's at 2 o'clock on a Thursday or 1 o'clock on a Wednesday, we just stick to 12 o'clock on a Tuesday, and we alternated. So I go to his school one week, he comes to my office one week. And the reason for that was If he had IT issues, I wanted to be able to just call my IT guy into the room and discuss it. If he had some kind of labor issue, I wanted to be able to call my HR person into the room and we could discuss it, so that I could give him access to our resources in the business, and that was helpful if he was on our site every second time. And the flip side is I wanted to be at the school every other week so I can get to see what's going on at the school. I think the biggest thing I've tried to do with Alfonso is to teach him some of my management learnings, just to pass them on. And what I mean by that is, my whole job is around how do I manage all the people who work for me, and what structures and systems do you put in place in order to maximize the outcomes from those people. And a lot of that is transportable back into any organization and even into a school. So how do you think about engaging with the staff? How do you engage with them? Is it formally? Is it informally? Do you make them write reports? Do you take them out for tea and just chat? I mean, how do you actually engage with these guys? But then how do you also track them and manage them? And I think the one big thing that might have come as a surprise to Alfonso, I mean, we track and manage and build process and systems around every single person, every single little process. So it's finely managed. And there's a huge journey for someone running a school to, well, how do you actually do it? How do you actually know what's going on in a classroom? How do you actually know if a teacher's performing in that classroom? And there are different ways of finding that answer, but it may be through academic outcomes. You may say, okay, well, show me the test results from that class. Let me review the test results. Let me see that next week, next month, next term, there's progress being made here. Let me see that all the kids sat and did the test. Let me see that the teacher's actually setting tests, etc. So I think that's the biggest thing. So if you say to me, what is my overarching kind of desire here? It's to put some extra tools into his hands that he can see that possibility of managing the school differently. For a start, about 60% of the kids in the school are from refugee families. Okay, so many of them come there with very challenged English to start with, and very, very under-resourced home environments. So it's really, really, it's challenging to see what these guys have to deal with. The guys are remain fundamentally under-resourced, and I think part of the problem is everyone wants to just try and rejig the curriculum. So whenever someone wants to try and improve the education system, have a different learning system, and this thing goes through cycles of re-engineering the educational curriculum, which is properly challenging. And I think most of it just needs to be done at a management level. I mean, I've learned a lot about how difficult it is for the guys when they've got no resources to do anything. I mean, when Alfonso literally doesn't have $500 to go and buy 3 cakes and have a little bit of a staff celebration for something. I mean, that's a proper challenge. And it's easy to be critical from the outside in a general sense about the education system in the country. But I'm sure St. Agnes is even far ahead of most of the other schools in terms of resources, etc. If you don't have a good leader, it's very difficult to have a good organization. So it doesn't mean that every good leader can fix every organization, but the converse is true. If you do not have a good leader, it's very seldom that you have a successful organization. And this is one tangible way where people can make a difference to uplifting the schools. I mean, the inspirational stories. I mean, when we met in those COPs, in those circles, and you hear the stories of some of these other principals who running schools in, areas which are infested with gangs and this. I mean, it's just absolutely humbling when you hear what they're going through. Look, I do think that this focus on leadership and focusing the attention on the principal is fantastic. I think that's a very good thing. And I think the actual structure of the program, so I think one of the best things of it is it's highly structured but highly flexible. So you have to meet regularly. You have to have a plan for the year. You have to have a facilitator, and yet you're allowed to do what you want. The plan is not prescriptive that you have to do A, B, and C in the plan, but they say you must have a plan. You must report against the plan. You must meet in these circles. You must meet with your facilitator, but you have a lot of flexibility within that. It hasn't been obvious that there have been any other programs that are substantially better than this. You know, this is, I think this is one of the Rolls-Royce programs out there. It really is fantastic, and I would love to see more corporates mobilizing behind this. I mean, in our little way, I've now put next generation of my management team into other partnerships, and guys going and going through the same journey, giving them the chance to go through the same journey themselves. So I think if we can harness more kind of corporate, I don't want to call it muscle, but experience, and bring it to the schools, I think that it could make a meaningful impact.